Hello everyone, I'm Nico and I'm currently teaching English in Beijing, China.
Hi, I'm Roxy. I'm an online English teacher and I teach children from all over the world.
Hi everyone, my name is Luan and I work for the TEFL Academy. I'll be presenting to you today and I'm very excited to be here. It would be lovely to know where you are, so please say hi in the chat, tell us where you are and we'll check in with that a few minutes from now. While we wait for those messages to come in, a bit about me. I have been a teacher for 13 long years, loving every second of it. I have taught students from around the world, various countries like Italy, Germany, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Libya, Saudi Arabia, France. The beautiful thing about TEFL is that this aspect comes part and parcel with the job. I'm also a teacher trainer, language practitioner, and Cambridge examiner. Just a bit of housekeeping before we start. Please note that questions will be answered at the end of this presentation. Only questions related to cover letters and CVs will be covered today, but be on the lookout for any future webinars and also look at some of our past webinars. They might be able to answer quite a few of your questions relating to other topics. They're super useful and helpful in getting you started in your career as a teacher or as a student at the TEFL Academy. Also, if you've got any other academic questions, be sure to send them to Tutor Support. Just open a ticket and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions. All right, so let's have a look at who we've got here today. Wow, we've got Patty from Canada. Hello. We have De Villiers from South Africa. Hi, neighbor. We have, I think it's Renika from Philadelphia. Hi, Beth from South Africa. Nice to see you. Christina from California. We've got, I think it's Doris from Idaho. Ashley, hello, South Africa. Canada, Karen, welcome. All right, Lucky, I think it's Lucky Ruth. Ruth, yes, you're from Uganda, welcome. All right, so it's lovely to have you all here today. Very excited to share this information with you. And please remember that you're more than welcome to ask some questions at the end of the presentation. All right, so let's get started. So as you know, yes, today we are looking at the CV and the cover letter. So the points we'll cover today is the importance of a good CV, the importance of a good cover letter, and then tips for a good CV, and also some tips for a good cover letter. So why a good CV? You know, for me, a good CV is that first step to the road, or on the road, sorry, to a successful recruitment. So as I mentioned, we'll be looking at the importance of the CV today. So when an employer is looking to recruit an EFL teacher, that's English as a foreign language teacher, it will be the CV that will decide whether the recruitment process comes to a halt or progresses to that all-important job interview. So first, we will look at a few helpful tips to help you fine-tune your CV. So remember that you are an EFL teacher, so make sure that your written English is of a high standard. The right information, yes, it's vital. It's of course very important to pack that CV with everything relevant, but accuracy is equally important here. So my advice is to proofread that document with a critical eye. Do what I do, have someone else proofread and check and be that second or third pair of eyes for you. Think about it. The worst thing is sending off your CV and then spotting errors after that may negatively impact your application. It's almost like sending a WhatsApp or a message to the wrong person, and then discovering this afterwards, or discovering it only after that little space where you can actually retract. No retracting with the CV, so best get that thing proofread. All right, and the very next tip that we're going to look at is to keep that information really relevant. Keep it relevant to the EFL post that you're applying for. So new EFL teachers should be aware that employers will often sadly ignore CVs which do not contain the information that they specifically ask for in the advertisement. And indeed, quite a few of them may not even bother replying to your application, which feels terrible. So best we include everything relevant in the CV. The next point is about the format, the simplicity of the CV. So there are tools out there that provide templates for you to use. There are some very useful sites with free templates. Have a look at these, download them, and experiment with them a bit. But the important thing is that while employers are they're not that particular about the template design, the CV will have to be clear and easy to follow. It must not be excessively ornate, and you should never submit a handwritten CV. This is quite important too. All right, let's move on. So the next point that I think we need to just get stuck into a little bit is the photo. If a photograph is required as part of your application, make sure that it is clear and attach it somewhere near the top of the first page of your CV. However, something very important to note here is that not all employers expect a photo. And in fact, in certain countries, this is not common practice at all. For example, in the UK. So my advice is to check with the personnel manager, and also, all I had to do to find out which countries companies in particular that require a photo. All I had to do was Google, CV photo not required in the following countries, and an entire list came up. So please make use of that. All right. Okay, so the fact that we're talking about information, I feel like we need to go into this a little bit more. Jumping back to the photo, something I just forgot there for a second that I think we need to have a look at are some tips for the ideal photo. So tip number 1, dress professionally. Tip number 2, look friendly and approachable. A lot of people tell us to avoid using our passport photos. Why? Because we cannot smile. So, my passport photo will certainly not get me hired anywhere. So the important thing is that you look friendly, you look approachable, but professional. Also, get someone to take the photo of you, or for you at least. Do not use a selfie. What goes hand in hand with that is to make sure that the photo shots, avoid group shots, just a head and shoulders photo with a nice professional background is all you need, if a photo is required. So now we can move on to the next section. So I mentioned to you earlier personal information is also going to be somewhere at the top, possibly near the photo if the photo is required. So let's look at what information we need to include. Of course, your name. And my advice is to include your name as it is on your passport or your ID document. This is quite standard. Also, your date of birth. Very important. Your nationality, your gender where relevant, your home address, your telephone number, your email address. And also, some people have an online CV. So make sure that if you do have an online CV, to include a link to this so that they can explore this option if they need to. All right, and the very next point, the very next tip we're going to look at is the flow of our CV. We need to have a nice structured CV with a good flow. So of course, we're talking about having the photograph right at the top with all your personal information. Then of course, your education, your TEFL qualifications, and then perhaps your skills summary. So this is the next section that I want to get stuck into. Which skills do we include with our CV in the skills summary section? So the first skill, yes, active listening skills. What is this? The ability to focus completely on a speaker, understand what they're saying, comprehend the information, and then, of course, to respond appropriately. That's what active listening. Information from one person to another or to a group of people, and this includes verbal, written, non-verbal, visual forms of communication too. The next bit of the next portion that you might want to include in your skills section, computer skills. Again, what do these entail? Well, to physically operate a computer and efficiently use computer programs and applications. As a teacher, we tend to mix up the media in the classroom a little bit, where presentations might be necessary. Also, if you're teaching online, your computer skills might be important. So do remember to include these. Mine are not great, but I make sure that they're there anyway, as limited as they are. And, you know, as a teacher, continue doing research, exploring new platforms, exploring new programs to get familiar with all these so that you can boost that section just a little bit more. The next point that you might want to include, customer service. So here, you know, this is all about the ability to address a client and to foster a good relationship with that client. Now, of course, as a TEFL teacher, you will have clients. Your students are your clients. Yes, we definitely want to see them as more than that. But, you know, as a foundation, starting your TEFL career, yes, it is important to have customer service skills as well. So you might want to include those if you have. And then the next point, and I think that this for me is something so pertinent to TEFL, and it's the interpersonal skills. So why would I want to include these? Well, this is all about that face-to-face exchange of thoughts and ideas, feelings, emotions. And I think that these are particularly useful in the TEFL classroom. So I think as a skill, it definitely needs to be highlighted. And then we've got leadership skills. Now, again, in your classroom, yes, while you've got a lovely rapport with your students, yes, you are the leader in your classroom. So the ability to organize people, to reach an aim. But remember that you might also be applying for a slightly different post in addition to your teaching position, where leadership might be something that would be necessary. And for me, this maybe goes a little bit hand in hand with the next skill, and that's your management skills, because again, this is all about managing projects, leading teams. Very often at a language school, you have someone called a director of studies or head of education or head of academics. And in this case, you would need some kind of management background. So if you've got that, certainly put it in there. And then the very next one that I think is necessary to include, problem-solving skills. Again, the ability to determine the problem, the source of the problem, and also to find an effective solution. All right. So also in the CV, do remember to include. Now we're leaving skills the skills section behind a little bit, but something in addition to all of the above, your language skills that would be necessary too. If you speak another language, you've got knowledge of another language, that sort of helps you in the TEFL classroom also. We don't use very often our students' first language. But I think that understanding another language definitely gives you insight into the thought process, the learning process of your students. So if you've got language skills, please include them. All right. And then, yes, following on with the good flow of CV, you've also got your work experience that needs to be included. And then also we've got things like hobbies and interests and foreign travel. These are all very important parts of a CV. All these need to be included in order for your CV to have a good flow and include all that pertinent information. All right, so now we leave the CV behind for a little bit and we get straight into the cover letter. So let's talk about why the cover letter is so important. So for me, it is the opportunity to showcase your skills and your talents. You present a cogent argument in support of your application for the EFL teaching post. For some employers, all other things taken into consideration, more stress is laid on the cover letter than on the contents of the CV. Isn't that interesting? So the cover letter, in essence, is that deciding factor to either open your CV or toss it. So part of my job at some of the language schools that I work for is helping out with recruitment. And very often that cover letter is something that seals the deal, gets me moving on to opening up the CV and exploring this applicant in a little bit more detail. So I think it's time to explore how to improve the cover letter before sending it off to any prospective employers. Right. So the first thing that we really need to remember is that you are applying for work. Your cover letter will have to be written in a formal register. So go online, consult the course material, the TEFL Academy's course material, and research formal versus informal language, and make sure you have used a combination of formal and neutral structures in your cover letter. All right, and the very next tip is accuracy. Here it is again, just like we discussed in the CV. Ensure that your grammar, your punctuation, your syntax are all very good, and avoid flowery language and hackneyed phrases. For example, team player. Don't forget, you are applying for an EFL teaching post, so all well-written letters, CVs, including emails, should be clear, concise, and polite. All right, and then also, yes, make sure that your cover letter is formatted as a business letter. It is a formal letter. It should be written carefully, using simple and easy to understand words. The content should be straightforward and precise. The letter should be short and brief, but contain all the necessary information. Since it is a letter related to business, yes, it should be as formal as possible. All right, so when we're writing the cover letter, don't forget to use the correct salutations and endings. So for example, the salutation, dear sir or dear madam, has yours faithfully as a subscription. The salutation, dear Mr. So-and-so, dear Mrs. name, has yours sincerely as a subscription. Remember that. Also, if you can find out the name of the person that you are meant to send your application to, well, this is very, very useful too. All right, and the next point, and this is quite important to me, is that the cover letter should not sound like a summary of your CV. Your letter should serve as an introduction to your CV. It should motivate the reader to progress to the CV. So while the CV showcases all of your qualifications and achievements, a cover letter should be used to expound upon these experiences and to highlight your personal interest in the position. Beyond that, it should explain how your experience makes you the best candidate for the job. So let's get into it. Let's have a look at what makes a good cover letter. So remember that underneath your photo, underneath your greeting, you need a title. For example, letter of application for the post of EFL teacher at the ABC school. Include a reference number if applicable. So bigger language schools advertise for various posts in various departments. So make sure that you are very specific here. The school administration will no doubt have to sift through a lot of email. The title will help you direct your correspondence to the correct department or the correct person. So a couple of tips around the title. Do not forget to underline the title and make sure that it clearly states the teaching post that you are applying for, or as mentioned earlier, include the reference number. All right, let's move on. So immediately after the title, yes, we have that first or introductory paragraph. In the first paragraph, you should briefly explain the nature of your correspondence and introduce yourself and your current situation as it concerns EFL teaching. Right, so it needs to be short, needs to be brief, but it really needs to get that person informed as to what they're going to be reading a little bit later on in the cover letter and ultimately in the CV. And then we get to the body. Make sure that it consists of 2 to 3, no more, informative paragraphs. The next 2 or 3 paragraphs should be concerned with advertising yourself as the best EFL teacher for the post. You should highlight your strong points and what you can bring to the job and the school. Your cover letter should show you to be motivated, enthusiastic, confident, but remember, avoid those hackneyed and flowery phrases and keep it simple, keep it professional, and remember, it is a business letter. Right, so now this brings us to the concluding paragraph. So the last paragraph should contain an expression of gratitude for the employer's consideration of your application. They're busy. They're really busy. So the fact that they're reading your application and taking the time to explore your CV, thank them. And you should try to end with a closing comment that will remain in your employer's mind. Some people end with a quotation that is relevant to the job application or to the world of teaching. All right. So when it comes to the cover letter, remember to keep it simple. Right, so to summarize, let's look at a few more don'ts that we may have missed, not only with the cover letter, but also with the CV. Right, do not CC everyone. Do not make one generic CV, one generic cover letter, and CC a few different businesses. I almost think that I don't need to explore that with you any further. I think it stands alone. It really, really is not the thing to do. And this ties up very much with the next point, avoiding generic cover letters and CVs. Tweak it from one employer to the next so that everyone feels they're getting the best of you, specifically for the job that they have advertised. So do not send CV to multiple employers. Remember that. Take the time to individualize your applications, and also many job seekers submit generic cover letters, and this is to save time, just altering details for each new position. But I feel that you're missing out on a great opportunity to really connect with employers, and by using a generic cover letter or CV. So instead of using that, write one that is tailored to the specific job you want. Use your cover letter to mention your interest in the position, your unique qualifications for this position, and the skills you bring to the table for this particular job. All right, another point, or another last minute tip, avoid going over one page when it comes to the cover letter, as if there is more to say on this one. You may feel like you have a lot to say about yourself and why you are the ideal candidate for the job, but recruiters are busy people and they might not have time to read a 3-4 page cover letter or your life story. So keep it simple and just detailed enough. All right, so I think that something we do need to finish with before we get on to Q&A is a couple of other documents that you might need going abroad. Remember, first, passport, absolutely necessary when it comes to international travel. Also, visa. Some countries require entry with a visa to teach English as a foreign language, so do explore what the visa requirements are. Also, your TEFL certificate. You will need your TEFL certificate to show that you are a qualified teacher to teach English as a foreign language. You may need to get your certificate notarized and legalized, but you can find out more about this on our site and also many, many useful sites out there. All right, you might have to provide certified copies of your degrees or your college certificates, your high school certificates, so make sure that you have these available when applying for jobs. The next thing might be a criminal background check. Many countries want you to have a criminal background check before they will allow you to teach English in their country. So do find out what is required. And again, I did a very simple thing here. I went into Google and I said how to get a criminal background check and then put in the name of the country that I was looking at, and immediately lots and lots of helpful information came up. Also, you might need some medical forms. So some countries will ask you to fill in a medical form, either when you arrive or before or maybe after. It differs from one place to the next. So make sure that you've got some kind of medical history with vaccinations, that sort of thing, as this might be necessary. As many of these as I can in the time left. And yes, if you've got any additional questions that do not relate specifically to today's topic, then yes, of course, you can send us a ticket on the Tutor Support platform and we'll be more than happy to help you. So I hope it's been good, but now is the time to let me know if you've got any questions. Please send them in the chat. I am ready for you. I see I've also got Arash. You've joined us from Iran. Welcome. Very nice to see you here today. All right, so we have a question from Saputri. Among all the types of the skills that we need to include in our CV, which are the most preferred by the recruiter? That is a very good question, Saputri. Thank you for your question. I think that for me, when I look at CVs, when I recruit for various schools in and around where I live, we do tend to look at, so and you're referring specifically to the skills. So we look at those communication skills. We look at those interpersonal skills, because at the end of the day, you've got to interact with students. You've got to talk to students like they're people. So those interpersonal skills, those communicative skills are very, very important. Yes, computer skills too, because I'll tell you, teachers have a lot of admin. I know that's bad news for some of you. It certainly was for me. So definitely put those computer skills in too. Very important. But please, Saputri, have a look at some of those skills that I included in today's webinar and tweak your CV according to the position you're looking for. But yes, like I've mentioned, specifically for TEFL, those interpersonal skills, communication skills, language skills are also quite important. And then, as I mentioned earlier, those computer skills too. I hope that helps. All right, so we've got another question from Ashley. Ashley has asked us about the font, the actual font. And I like these questions because they're basic and they need to be included too. So Ashley, absolutely. I use Arial 11 or 12. A lot of the CVs that I get that I quite enjoy reading and I enjoy the look of it is, I think it's called Calibri 11, also very commonly used. So Arial 11 or 12, Calibri, did I say 11? Yes. That's another common and a really nice standard professional looking font. All right, so thank you for your question too. Okay, let's have another look here. All right, so Amanda, thank you for your question. As a recruiter, what things on the CV or in the cover letter makes an applicant stand out? So for me, again, when looking at the cover letter, it needs to tell me more about why I need to open up the CV. It needs to tell me why you are ideal. So not just telling me what your qualifications are, sort of listing them, because that I'm going to see later on as soon as I open that CV. So why you're good for the job, what do you bring to the table? Me, for example, I love forming relationships with my students. I like the idea of getting to know them so that I can teach them effectively. So that's definitely something I put in my cover letter. So when it comes to that cover letter, for me, the big motivation is why me? What about me makes me ideal for this job, and what makes me stand out? Because there are TEFL teachers out there, lots of them are great, but what do you bring to the table? I think that's quite important. All right, and then Saputri, you're very, very welcome. Okay, and then let's see. I've got another question here. When you asked for additional information to add, Roberta, thank you. When you asked for additional information to add, what are they expecting from you? Roberta, I'm not quite sure. Additional information is in the CV itself, in the cover letter? I'm not so sure what you're referring to. So if you could clarify for us, I would be more than happy to answer your question. Also, something to note is that a lot of teachers who are brand new in the world of TEFL feel that, I don't have a lot of experience. So what's there to say about that? Remember that to even include, tutor jobs that you might have done in the past, whether they be on a formal or informal basis. I know I did. To get my first job, I started tutoring kids in my neighborhood. I started working as a volunteer at language schools. I started with helping kids to read, and this I put on my CV as tutoring time. So remember that those of you who are brand new in the world of TEFL, you are more than welcome to put those things on your CV too and highlight them as teaching time or tutoring time. This is something important to remember. Okay, so I've actually got a question that nicely ties in with what I've just mentioned now. If I don't have TEFL teaching experience, can I include admin experience? Would that help? Yes, yes, yes. As I mentioned earlier, teachers have a lot of admin. Thanks for your question, Linda. Teachers have a lot of admin. We're always busy with admin. When we're not in the class, we're busy with admin. So if you've got administrative skills, those are very, very useful. I even knew a teacher a while back. She was a brand new teacher and her strength was admin because she came from an administration background. So she got a job at the language school, but she was more in the office than in class. And she actually ended up working for the language school more in an admin capacity because she enjoyed it so much and taught when she had a free moment. It's interesting where TEFL takes you. So thank you for that question. And yes, it's absolutely valid and important to put on your CV. All right, so, okay. I think I understand. In the CV from TEFL format, there is a portion asking for what additional information you can include to add up for your CV. All right. So unfortunately, when it comes to the CV as part of the assignments, I'm unable to help on that front because that is part of the grading process. But do explore and have a look online, see what is expected with additional information. For example, in my CV, I have a section for additional information, and there I put all the little bits and pieces that I still feel might be relevant to this teaching job, but these bits and pieces were not included in my actual CV. I hope that helps you a little bit. But definitely have a look online just to see what sort of information that would make up the additional information section. All right. Okay, let's see. I've got another question here. I don't have other qualifications in education. How does it affect my CV, or does it make my CV more generic? Well, you know what? The interesting thing, De Villiers, thank you for your question, is that very often the teachers who do the TEFL course has been designed for people who have never taught before, and who do not necessarily have an education background. I don't have. Are you talking about sort of other tertiary qualifications or qualifications specifically in education? So I'll sort of deal with them both. If you're looking at qualifications specifically linked to education, no, you do not need to have those. Some countries, before you go overseas, might ask you for, they might require a degree. But guess what? The degree doesn't even need to be education based. It can be anything. If, however, De Villiers, you are asking about other qualifications outside of your TEFL, maybe just your high school diploma and your TEFL certificate, this differs a little bit from country to country. Some countries require a degree, some do not. And those countries that do not require a degree, well, your high school and your TEFL, you're good to go. You're good to start teaching. I hope that answers your question. And thank you. It's a really, really valid question. Either way. And Roberta, you're very welcome. All right, and then I've got, another short, simple, but I'm telling you ever so valid. The question is about references. So when it comes to references, me personally, I never put mine in the CV ready-made. I always say references available on contact. So they would be able to contact me and ask me for the references, and then I can provide them. If, however, you feel comfortable putting the references on immediately, this is up to you. I think that a lot of people are applying maybe while they have existing jobs. So that might be a little bit of a sensitive point, but in most cases, it's all right to say references available on request. Absolutely. All right. All right, so I'd actually like to address this one too. I'm the chairman of board of my own educational company in Iran, and I'm going to teach English in Spain. Wow, while studying masters there. Is mentioning my management experience useful in my CV? Absolutely, yes. In fact, it was one of the last points we looked at in our slides today. That management is absolutely something important to put on your CV because, like I said, it opens you up to other paths and possibilities within the world of TEFL. You might then later on enjoy the aspect of teacher training, running workshops at the school. So absolutely, it is an important point to put on your CV. Ashra, I think it's Arash, I wish you all the best for this major change from Iran to Spain. Keep us posted. Let us know how that goes. I'm very excited for you and well done. Congratulations. All right, Roberta, here's another question from you here, and I'm going to display it on the screen because I think it's quite important. What is expected of you when asked if you are a native speaker? So remember, Roberta, and to all of you asking this question, you do not need to be a native speaker to teach English as a foreign language. As long as you can, in fact, to do the course, you just need to be a C1 advanced or proficiency level speaker. Show us that you are, and you can absolutely do the course. And then going on to teach, it is also not a problem. I had a director of studies at one of the schools I worked at in Cape Town, and she was a lovely Hungarian lady. Her first language was not English. It was, however, proficient, and she was perfect. It was absolutely a great experience working with her. So in South Africa too, we have 11 official languages. So many of our TEFL Academy course participants do not have English as a first language, and it really is not a problem. As long as you're clear when you speak, you convey the message correctly, you have English, and your English is accurate and proficient, You're fine. Absolutely fine. But Roberta, that is a really important question. Thank you for asking. All right. So I've got another one relating to language, and I love these questions because I had all these questions when I embarked on my TEFL job. So De Villiers, again, thank you. Great question. If I don't speak the native language, does it affect my CV? De Villiers, I think that you're referring to the native language of the country where you are going to teach. Right. So the only thing that speaking the native language really helps you with is out there, once you are outside of the classroom, finding accommodation, ordering a cup of coffee. But in the actual classroom, the TEFL course, and all employers know this, the TEFL course gives you the tools, the ability to teach another language without speaking that actual language. In fact, we have something called complete or total immersion, where you're actually encouraged not to use the native language because the students want that complete immersion experience. So it absolutely doesn't affect your CV. But what I will tell you, De Villiers, is maybe learn a little bit of survival language so that on your CV you can say, yes, basic, so that you can put that on there, survival phrases. Mine would probably be I'm lost or where is the coffee? You might want to learn a few more than that, but it does help your day-to-day existence in another country. And yes, that would most likely look nice on your CV. To teach in the actual class, no, you do not. You do not need to speak the language of the students you are teaching. I hope that answers your question. Please let me know if I haven't quite covered everything there for you. All right. You're welcome. You're very, very welcome. Including a character reference. Well, another question. Ashley, thank you. I'm not so sure. I know that a lot of places do not expect one. However, if they do ask you for one, or if they want one, they will specifically ask for it. And then, yes, please do include it as one of the documents, attach it in a separate document, but yes, again, only if they are specifically asking for it. I would include it, yes. All right, I hope that helps. Amanda, yes, thank you for your question. It says, do you state in your cover letter that you're a fluent English speaker if you're considered okay, so again, maybe I would go with my CEFR levels, just say C1 or C2. That immediately says that you're proficient in English. And again, for me, for example, I would put English, the second or third language that I speak. So, just under language skills, just English. I mean, that's a given. You're applying for an English job, and then just maybe put your other languages. And then maybe the language that you do speak, first language, put that in brackets as home or first language, but again, only if it's necessary. All right. You're very welcome, De Villiers. No problem at all. Any other questions? Arash, your question, in case of finding better jobs, I'm not sure, but I'm going to answer what I think you've asked me about here. Maybe where to start your job search. So as a course participant, if you are with the TEFL Academy, which you are, you will have access to our jobs board, where you will be able to peruse jobs that are updated quite regularly, and you'll be able to apply to any of these. When it comes to applying for jobs, those of you who are still busy with your TEFL certificates, you can absolutely start applying for jobs. Many employers accept a letter of some kind of enrollment letter, just to show that you are currently doing a TEFL course as proof that you are. So they would accept that as part of your application. So you can absolutely start applying now. And a great place to start is the jobs board on the TEFL Academy website. So good luck with that. All right. Any other questions? You're very welcome, Amanda. All right, let's see. Roberta, I'm going to try and answer this one. I noticed from the TEFL website that most of the job offers, they do not provide relocation help like visa accommodation, especially in the UK. Okay, so you're saying that the job offers, they don't provide relocation assistance and so on. I guess, yes, some of them don't and some of them do. When it comes to companies that provide all that kind of help, just do your homework, research as much as you can, ask on other teacher, like these forums for teachers and so on, just to check the information against someone else. But yes, some of them don't provide all this help because it is a huge responsibility, someone's visa situation and relocation. So I think for that reason, some of these companies don't provide that extensive assistance. And then you might get lucky and some of them do. But when you find those that do, again, check them out, do your homework, bounce it off a few other people, preferably peers or colleagues or people on a teaching platform. That might be quite helpful. All right. Are there any other questions before we wrap up for today? Okay, so just to finish off, if you are about to start applying, all the best. Okay, I do have one other question that's just come in. Let's see. Is it safe to list my address and phone number when I send my CV? Should I say that I can provide this later? Linda, I would say that especially if you are applying to a reputable company, it is better to put those things in from the get-go. The reason being, it's quite standard across the world to include that bit of personal information. If, however, you do feel a little uncertain, okay, you need to make that call. But in most cases, I would say that this information, that personal information that you're referring to there, they come part and parcel with the CV, quite a standard structure. And yes, I think you're okay to put it in there, especially if you know that you are applying to a reputable company or sending your information to a reputable agency. I hope that answers your question. All right, so I'll wait a couple of minutes if there are any other questions to address. Otherwise, we can wrap up. I'll be sending you a survey link in a little bit. Please take the time to fill in the survey. The reason we ask for this is to know whether there is anything we can do to improve from our end or any other topics that you might want to have included in the future webinars. And like I said, please be on the lookout for these future webinars. They're weekly, they're free, they're from a panel of experts that know the business. So please tune in. Also have a look at our previous webinars if you can find them. They're also quite useful. You might have missed a couple of these already. Doris, I'm very, very happy to hear that this has been helpful. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you. I've got, let's just see. Sorry, there we go. Okay, and then I've got one more question. A copy of ID, my ID would also be safe. In most cases, yes. Certified copies of IDs, especially for overseas companies, yes, absolutely, you can send these documents. Again, like I said, if you're not sure where you're applying to, maybe do a bit more research on the entity that you are applying to before sending these sensitive documents. But again, lots of this information is quite part and parcel of a CV or an application and would most likely be expected on the other side. However, I would say that if it is a blind application, if they're just asking for CVs, then I would say just provide the CV document, your cover letter, and anything else more official that they need, they might request at a slightly later stage, and then yes, have these documents available and ready to send if need be. But if all they're asking for initially is your CV and your cover letter, then I would say you're good there. Patty, you're absolutely welcome. Arash, absolutely welcome. You've asked me some really, really important questions there, so very, very happy. And then Roberta, sorry, thank you for all your questions. Really useful stuff. I'm sure that the questions you asked today, a lot of other people have those questions too. Same, De Villiers, thank you very much. I'm sure that a lot of the questions that you asked today were on the minds of a lot of people that have tuned in. So thank you very, very much. All right, any other questions before we wrap up? Police clearance. Thank you, Ashley. Yes, I mentioned earlier that in closing, you might have missed this, that some countries or some companies in certain countries do actually request a criminal background clearance certificate or something like that. So very often what you'd have to do is just check if they require this and have it done, and how to have it done. I think I literally Googled, do I need criminal clearance for this country? And I even Googled specifically TEFL jobs, and a lot of useful information came up. So you will be able to find out whether you would need police clearance or not. All I had to do was go online for 2.5 minutes and I found the information I required. So Ashley, great question, but have a look online and see what the country requires where you are actually going. All right. And Beth, you're absolutely welcome. Please let us know if you've got any other questions. And like I said to lots of you, if you've got questions that haven't quite been addressed here today, send us a message onto the ticket platform. All right, De Villiers, I have one more from you. It says, how do we look out for scams? Oh, De Villiers, where do I start here? There are scams out there, yes. And I really don't want to use the overused, hackneyed expression, you know, if it looks too good to be true, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But I would say that, yes, if they're promising you the world, I'm not saying that it's not legit, but I would say that's your little flag to actually pay a bit more attention and do a bit more homework. So yes, there are scams out there, and I would say that if they promise you, you know, that bullet point list looks too fabulous, I would say do a little bit more research. I find that teacher forums are really helpful. You punch, I can't think of any of them right now, but De Villiers, there are many of them online. You'll be able to ask other teachers, do you know this agency? Do you know this one? Have any of you applied for this? What was the outcome? And the minute someone says, I applied, it was great, you know, have a little bit more of a conversation, do your homework, and then I'd say you're good to go. And then, De Villiers, I've actually got a question. Do I provide my high school transcript and passport from the beginning or when they ask for it? That's a great question. When I do applications, I don't normally send this. I normally send my CV and the cover letter just as they've asked. And the minute they ask for anything additional, and also my certificates, my TEFL certificate, that I send too. You know, and anything else that they need from me, well, that I send, I follow up with, a follow-up email, and it usually is not a problem. Do I need to work through an agency? Are you talking about a recruitment agency? Because then, no, not really. And then also there are, okay, personnel agency, no, it's not necessary. Some teachers get in touch with agencies like placement agencies. You know, like you have these advertisements like Teach in China, This is just an example, please. Teach in China, send your application, and then these agencies basically set you up with everything over there, including accommodation, maybe for the first couple of months. Thereafter, you're on your own. So, I mean, you can, but take a look on the jobs board, de Villiers, because there are lots of jobs out there where you do not need to go through an agency. They're above board, they've been around for years, and you'll be fine. So, no, it's not 100% necessary to go through an agency. All right. So thank you for tuning in today. I will be putting the webinar link, the survey link on the screen in a second, but also I'll be putting it in the chat. And like I said, please send us your feedback. It's so useful for us tutors. Have a look on the chat. It should be there right now. And thank you very, very much for tuning in. It was lovely spending an hour with you from the various points and all around the world. It's been a pleasure. And like I said, if something hasn't been covered today, send us a message to Tutor Support. Thanks and bye-bye.